Hi, everyone. Welcome to JSConf and Track B. I'm Kevin, and today I'd like to share with you my struggle with something called Impostor Syndrome. And I'll offer some hacks that you may be able to use if you have the same struggle. I am a software developer, and I work remote from my home office for the company called Coupa. We're hiring JavaScript developers of all levels. Find me if you are interested in learning more. So working remotely, I get to spend a lot of time with my family. And as you can see, I'm a dad. I love being a dad. There are a lot of struggles I had at first with being a dad. Gosh, I've never been a dad. I've never, dogs, cats, right? But another human. Am I going to be able to do that, take care of that? Like I said, this is Jackson. He's the one without the beard. And he loves Christmas and all the decorations. And, as a dad, I want to do the right thing. I want to, set him up for success. I want him to see me very successful. Earlier this week, my wife asked me to set up some yard decorations for Christmas. They happen to be of the inflatable kind, and if you've ever worked with those, they have a lot of tethers usually to keep the wind from blowing them from side to side and away. And not only did she ask me to do that, she asked me to do it during lunch, and I normally have like stuff, right? It's like I really want to do what I want to do, and she said, well, he would really love it if you did it before he came home from school. Like, he goes to a Mother's Day out, and there was like 45 minutes left. And so I'm like, oh, gosh, okay, so there's, it's a deadline, and it's pressure because there's expectations. And, I'm like, oh, gosh. So, okay, so I get the box, and I unpack it, and, the inflatable part, it's pretty much one piece, and there's this ball of like, tethers, and it's a ball. And it looks so, like, just nestled together, right? And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I can just gently pull that apart, and then I've got 4 tethers, and I can go on with my day. This is 10 minutes into it. I had a lot of thoughts going through this, and I'm like, gosh, I've got stuff to do. I can't, what if this takes hours? Like, I'm not expert. I mean, good grief, and why do we even have inflatables? And who cares if it gets blown away, right? I was able to, that's a poor picture, but I was able to get all 4 of them out. And then I got to this moment, success, right? You know it's success when you have an inflatable 6-foot dachshund Santa in your front yard, right? And it got me to thinking, that, golly, man, that's the struggle I have with software. I love when I get the dachshund in the yard, right? Like, I love that. And, that's why I got into software, because I get that feedback and, I solve whatever it is. And, it's real success. And, even more important are, like, the project managers and the bosses and the customers that love that success. My customer loved this success. As a dad, I was like, man, got it. This is awesome. But the journey to that was not as rosy as it should have been. You see, I'm an expert. I will stand here and tell you I'm 100% expert. I'm an expert at eating. I'm an expert at talking with my hands. And I'm an expert at believing that I can't. Without a full understanding of a problem or possible solutions, I will go through a thought process where I talk myself out of whatever success I could have. What's crazy is that in some cases I've solved it 1,000,000 times in other forms. But I'll still try to convince myself that I can't do it. There's too many challenges, so why even begin, right? So really, yeah. This is a real thing, and it's called Impostor Syndrome. With imposter syndrome, you can just simply feel inadequate when in actuality you're perfectly qualified for the task at hand. It'll make you think you're unable to go a single step further. It's literally doubt that will just manifest itself in a lot of different situations. I'd like to talk about a few of those that relate to our industry. So we are knowledge workers. 100 years ago, it wasn't knowledge work, it was assembly lines, and now everything has changed. In our industry, with software, the pace has absolutely changed. In some cases, we're not able to keep up with everything that's coming out, with frameworks, with databases, with networks, with protocols. And on top of that, newcomers are constantly in fear of what they don't know, right? And even how to learn what's next. Like, they're not even thinking about the task at hand. It's what's happening. What am I going to miss, or what do I don't know about? What does someone, think of me? There's often thoughts of, what if they find out I don't know how to fix this? I've had that 1,000 times over my career. And what if I can't fix this? Wow. Does that mean I'll lose my job? Software is made up of a lot of basic things. Computing numbers, formatting text, communicating over networks these days. It's really complex. We have a formal separation these days of front-end versus back-end. And what's interesting is that if you ask a back-end developer to help out with something on the front end, you often get a lot of reluctance to say, hey, that's CSS, I don't know about that. But the whole time this guy is maintaining, or this person's maintaining a ton of protocols and databases and et cetera, right? And on the flip side, the front-end developers, there's this huge fear that they'll take the site down, and you're just like, hey, can you just write this function? We're sales people, if you don't know that. We have to sell ourselves on a technology, right? And then we end up having to sell each other on why this is the right way to do it. Management. It's hard, right? You have to figure out what's the way to sell it, right? And then there are all these thoughts of what if something I suggest doesn't work, right? Is it me? Will they blame me? Like, is there actual blame if this doesn't go the way they said it was? Again, will I get fired, right? I've spent a career building software for a lot of companies, and every now and then I'll have an idea of something for me that solves my own problem. And I'm absolutely the worst at implementing those. When we moved about 6 years ago, and we're looking for houses, and I couldn't find a tool that helped me keep up with the houses we'd seen online, the houses we'd visited and we either liked or disliked. And then, of course, we had family that was just always asking, well, what have you seen? What have you, all of these just inputs that are coming, right? And it's like, I can't keep up with that, so let me build a tool. And I built this real hackish tool that did some web scraping and pulled images from an MLS database, but it gave like one page for everyone to like see. And the feedback from family was awesome. And I started sharing it with friends, and they're like, oh man, you should totally build that. It's awesome. I need that. I can use it apartment hunting. It's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. It solved my need. But I talked myself out of ever building that before. I would say before I've written the first line of code, but I have several versions of this. One version in Perl, another version in JavaScript. I could see things like the TechCrunch article that would, like say why this failed, right? Because I didn't use this library. Like that was it. That was the reason, and TechCrunch was the authority, and they knew that. And that's the reason that, I can see that, so I just shouldn't even do it. Done, right? So that's the setup for imposter syndrome. There's all these thoughts in all these different areas. I picked a few of them, and I want to share like how I've been able to hack this. by no means an expert at this ideas I have to present, but because this week, man, imposter syndrome reared its head. I'm overly qualified for this talk, and preparing it, I felt like an imposter. But overall, it's about proving to yourself what you already know. Being confident, not cocky, about your abilities is 100% healthy. It just simply sets you up so that you know what you bring to the table. And imposter syndrome, we all know hacking software and how to kind of go around things with different protocols, or you route around a function or something, right? So I try to recognize that imposter syndrome is a lie. I am lying to myself. And I try to realize that I'm in that thought process and where it's leading, and then I stop. It's pretty easy to train yourself to recognize something. I have another thing that happens to me periodically throughout a year. On a Friday, I'll be working on a problem, and I'm not able to solve it, but I don't want to put it down. That's the pattern. And once I started to realize that I'm in that, I say, you know what? I need to put this down, because that's the solution. It's like, I don't want to put this down. And so I have this battle. And what's crazy is every time I put that down, I solve it in like 30 minutes on Monday. It's so awesome. But the whole time I'm telling myself I'm not going to be able to solve it. So just simply recognize that you're in this thought process of, I can't do this. They're not going to believe it. No one's going to buy it. And then start to seek first to understand. So I'm a huge fan of a tool called Ansible that's in the DevOps community. And it will allow you to deploy servers. And it does it literally over an SSH connection. One of the opening screens has a little message that spoke to me when I first saw it. And it's just called Gathering Facts. So you point it at a Linux box, and it starts gathering facts. And I thought, man, that's awesome. In these situations where I'm feeling like an imposter, I just need to start gathering facts, right? Knowledge is power. It's totally okay to not know what you're doing, right? Ansible had no idea what's on the other end of that, so it starts to get input. The system name, the time, etc. Start to take an inventory of what you know. It's okay. You don't, like I said, you don't have to be cocky. It's just confidence. Build up your confidence in what you know. I know how to write with a pencil. I know how to, put on my shoes. Proof, right? Functional programming is pretty awesome. If you've not played with or looked into functional programming, I encourage you to do that, not only for a way you can kind of use that concept to hack imposter syndrome, but it's really awesome. With a function, you receive inputs. So these, in the imposter syndrome world, they can be facts or concepts. And then you make a transformation and you output something. That output should likely be learning, right? It's something you've learned. It's just an idea to take something that we know in our code world and bring it into our thought process. And immutability is another concept that may help in this area. It's helped me. Earlier this year, I started using Immutable JS, and I found a lot of comfort in the fact that I could have a mutation to an object or something, and I can compare it, and it's all good, right? I don't have to worry about that thing anymore. So, in relation to imposter syndrome, I carry along like debugging sessions that take weeks and days and hours, and don't carry that along. Just because this bug 2 years ago took you days and weeks, to trace through a system, it doesn't mean that all of them will take that, right? Just that is one thing Right? It's completely unrelated to what you're doing right now. And I'm a huge fan, I work on the front end these days, I'm a huge fan of Redux and Hotloader, React Hotloader, time travel, that Dan Abramov brought to Redux from a language called Elm. If you've not seen that, I encourage you to find that on YouTube and look at the front-end debugging process. But what's cool is if you think about things in immutable, like as a single state, right? You carry a state along with these immutable objects, and you can replay history. So if you start batching things up and say, you know what, yes, 2 years ago, this situation took us a month, to trace it through all the ops stuff, and it's okay, right? That was then. We've got a different stack now. We have different people. I have learned a lot more since then, right? Just an encouragement to kind of replay history. I have to take this to heart. Like, I constantly look at my Twitter feed, and I'm like, gosh, they shipped 1.0 of that, and I've not shipped a single thing, right? They got funding. Wow, that's awesome. But the success of others is not a failure of yours. I mean, wow, that's like, it hit me one day that it's so, it doesn't mean I didn't do something, right? One of the times I happened to be holding my son, and I was scrolling through Twitter, right? I was feeding him a bottle, and someone had shipped something. I had that feeling. But guess what? I'm taking care of a human. It's okay, I mean, literally focus. I lose sight, obviously, when I'm in a thought process of, I'm an imposter. And focus on the value you bring to the situation, right? That goes back to the inventory. And just build great software. If you're in a business, it's okay to know your market and the advantage that your business has, but just forget everything else. It's all noise. I use Vim as my editor, and I'm proud to say that I've used it for almost 15 years. There may be Emacs guys in the back. But that's what I know. I'm able to do everything with that editor. I love what all of the editors that continue to push the web and the space forward, I love what they bring. And I love what I'm able to bring back into my editor, but that solves my problem, and I'm completely confident in that. It's okay. And I really only switch to a new language or a database or a protocol when it makes absolute sense that the course I'm going is wrong. I'd also encourage, if you're not using any sort of testing tool, to set something up. It doesn't matter what it is. It'll just simply give you a little bit of confidence in a certain area that this piece works. It may be a function, but that's huge. I think we lose focus about scaling, right? Gosh, if we could just scale to 1 before we're worrying about 1 million, it would change a lot of the way we develop things, and also how we beat ourselves up, I think, or at least myself. When you learn to program, you start with, printing hello world, and then you take that and you put it into a file, and it's procedural, and you take that and you break it up into functions, and you take that and you put it into objects, and then there's the war between object-oriented programming and functional programming, and yeah. But you had to scale to 1 before you got to something bigger. And then as soon as you're able to scale to 1, ship it. 1 line of code is enough to ship. And your customer that saw the inflatable dachshund will do their jump in the air. As soon as you ship, get feedback. I took my advice yesterday. As I was putting this together, Impostor Syndrome was rearing its ugly head. I reached out to some friends that I trusted, and they gave me extremely valuable feedback in how I put this together, and they offered constructive criticism. And feedback will get you out of your head. That's exactly where you need to be. And it will shift your perspective on the problem as well as the solutions. You have to talk to people. I heard a quote recently, and I can't accredit it to someone, but software is about people. I am an introvert, and I like to go and get with my code and work on that problem and come up for meetings when I have a chance. But there are other days that I have to force myself into realizing, hey, this team dynamic, and these people are here to help me and reason about the problem and the solutions. Just realize that they have the same struggle that you do with whatever it is you're working on, with code and how it's deployed in the projects. Everything's different, but we all struggle with different things. Make sure to ask how they've navigated certain situations that you might be facing right now or you faced in the past. It's always good to get a different perspective on the idea. If you don't attend a local user group, do so, because that can help with these conversations. And then realize that you're not talking apples to apples, right? What's a scaling issue to you is not a scaling issue to them. And how this utility performs for them isn't always how it's going to perform for you. This hit home for me with testing. And an episode of Node Up that was, I believe, put out in the fall of last year. And it was really eye-opening because I just had this perception that everyone had testing right and it all just worked for them. And, you know, because of this old busted stack, I can't test, or I'm never going to be there. Our tests take hours to run. But if you talk to a lot of developers, yeah, some can even take days to run, right? That we've got legacy systems and we're bringing them along. And what was interesting about this episode is that as I listened to it, I realized that my stack was integration. And the people that were on this panel were all talking about unit tests. And it was apples to oranges. And I was like, wow. So we're not talking the same thing, right? They can unit test. I need to integration test. So that's it. That was it. But up until then, I felt like an imposter about testing in my test setup that I'd have carried along in that particular project. And as you're talking, share what you know. You may not think it's a ton, but to the other person, it may be huge. I think pair programming is absolutely amazing for this. In the pairs that I have been a part of, I can't think of a single time where we didn't come away with something that the other person learned. And I like to call it shoulder surfing, but I will pick up on something that someone's doing, and I'm like, how did you do that? Or what are you using? And it may be something completely unrelated to what we're doing. But if we never had that interaction, I would have never said, hey, can you show me how you toggle this key, right? Ironically, it comes down to times when most of those are when I pair with a friend of mine that uses Vim, and he will show me something, and it turns out, I'm like, what plugin are you using? That's awesome. When was it released? And it's core to Vim, and it has been since like 1995. So that's fair. But sharing what you know will build confidence in your abilities, and it will also help someone, so it's win-win. Make sure to get comfortable saying this. And then follow it up with, I'll find out. Just approach each situation with something you know and then something you'll learn, and you'll be okay. There are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns. These can be extremely crippling. It's okay that you don't know everything about the stack. Just know your piece and trust others to know theirs. Finally, just a note to be kind. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. When we're at a conference like this, a lot of people are learning. And it's not okay to not include them in a conversation because they don't know. As an imposter, I'll walk into a conversation and they're talking about something that I don't use. So I'll instantly count myself as not qualified to participate. I encourage you to bring people into the fold if you see them not participating and give them that comfort. We have complicated stacks and there's just a lot of disruption going on with the technologies and with how we're gluing them together. So just don't beat yourself up. So that's my story and the hacks. Feel free to find me this weekend or reach out to me on Twitter. Keep the conversation going and let me know if I can help you. Let me know what works for you. Thank you.